Good morning, everybody. Stu Smith here going live. Hope you guys are well today. We're doing something a little different today just because life has gotten in the way of my best made plans. So we need to combine a podcast that I like to do on the weekend, kind of new to it. It's called the Never Quit Mindset Podcast. And we just talk a little bit about the whole process of never quitting and getting started and having doubts and not fearing failure, things like that. Things that are in this Never Quit Mindset booklet. 10 chapters. And in those chapters, I tried to summarize it as best I could with a quote. And the quotes I found that were best were some that I was presently reading in a couple of the books by the Stoics or some readings by the Stoics. And Marcus Aurelius came up a lot, Seneca, Plato, all those classics. And I'm not trying to be a busybody know-it-all. I am definitely not a scholar of the Stoics. I just like reading them, and sometimes those things are great to summarize a feeling that I'm trying to explain. And I don't know if you know this, but trying to explain the never quit mindset and all the dimensions that are part of that is quite challenging because it is physical, it is mental, it is psychological. You know, it is so much part of the brain and so much part of the body and your will and heart, how bad you want to do something. All of that encapsulates what the never quit mindset is, and it's tough to do it in an article, or it's tough to do it in a few sentences. It does require multiple chapters, and that's what that program is. But the Stoics had a way of just putting their words, making them concise, and making them work. So if you haven't read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, I highly recommend it. Even if you just leave it in the bathroom, read a few pages every time you're in there, you'll get something out of it. I promise you. And then there's a couple other books in my book that I recommend reading, and they're largely Stoic related. Um, but you can check those out. So while Marcus Aurelius didn't really discuss the never quit mindset, his philosophies that he studied and he worked his hardest to implement in his own life, um, just really kind of put a continuous effort in becoming a better person. Um, focusing on what you can control, accepting adversity as the way to go. The obstacle is the way. It's adversity is a chance for growth. Doing hard things because they are hard will make you a better person. Um, Having self-discipline and all of your acts and even your thoughts have some intention with that. Know why you're doing this. So if you read his meditations, you will understand what I'm talking about. It's very um it's very useful in today's world, I promise you, because I think today's world we are way caught up in emotions and letting them flow, and um it's fine to talk about your emotions, but it's not good to let your emotions get the best of you. And now you act without intention and you do something that you shouldn't have done. Okay. So, anyway, that's what I found to be very useful by reading the Stoics. So, some key philosophies, if you're not familiar with Stoic philosophy for just persevering in life, is focus on what you can control. I would say Aurelius taught, that you can't control your external events, but you can control your reactions and your choices to those events. Um, maintain your momentum by focusing on your energy on what you can influence. And his quote that I used in this book, I think in chapter 2, maybe, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. We have these debates all the time of how can we be better? Be a better person. You know, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. I like that one. Embrace adversity. That's a really good one. Probably a couple of chapters are all about embracing adversity in here. In fact, some of the names of the chapters in this thing are, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's just my way of saying you are going to go do something that you're not good at doing yet. But by adding consistency and building habits and self discipline, what you were once not good at doing, you can now be great at doing. Just take some time, let it go. Um, I see it all the time with land athletes trying to prepare for a spec ops job that requires swimming and diving. They are horrible at swimming when they start, but then they get good and they get good enough to do the job and be competent in the water and get, it's just they saw the obstacle, they went through the obstacle. Um, so embracing adversity. In fact, his quotes that I use in this book are comfort is the worst addiction. Um, and being comfortable, being uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable is my explanation of a part of mental toughness that is required, and it is embracing that adversity. View obstacles as opportunities to strengthen your resolve and character rather than a reason to give up. Okay, number 3 of his principles, and I'm just going to list a few of these and then I'll take some questions here in a minute. Practice self-discipline, cultivate internal strength and moderation to avoid giving in to destructive emotions or urge to quit when things get difficult. So I love the self discipline project because when you really work to engage it, you get a scoop of it every single day. And that scoop of self discipline helps you build mental toughness and helps you build that never quit mindset. And where I see it personally and in our local groups is we show up 6 a.m., do a workout 6 days a week, and it is uncomfortable outside. It's either hot and humid or it is cold in winter. And there's a moment when you're comfortable in your bed, don't feel like getting up, but you get up anyway. Um, his quote that helps me summarize that chapter about doing things even when you don't want to do it, finding the fuel when the tank is empty, is if it is endurable, then endure it. Love that one. Earlier, I mentioned think and live with intention. That's one of his principles, understanding that every moment is precious and that time is not infinite. I would say, Marcus Aurelius really talks about how time is fleeting. And in fact, he is, even though he was emperor of the Roman Empire, he, and this is a story that I have seen been disputed a few times, but anyway, he had a slave that would remind him that he is just human. You're just a man. And you might see this Latin quote, memento mori, which basically means we're all going to die. You're just a man, you're not a god type of thing. um, and so he was just a humble person that allowed for himself to do great things, but not let it get to his head to a point where he didn't act with integrity, and that he was constantly seeing his own mortality every day and reminding himself that he's just a man. In fact, he encouraged constant com- contemplation of our mortality to increase appreciation for the present moment and to motivate purposeful action. So if you're having a hard time getting started and you're doing nothing, that is where I think uh, reading some of the Stoics can really help you get started, because you can't have a never quit mindset if you don't get started, right? If you're not doing anything, what is there to quit, right? That anyway. Um, so anyway, this kind of mindset combats complacency and the temptation to give up or not even start. And his quote that I like is it not death a man should fear? It is not death a man should fear, but having never lived. I've probably heard that a dozen times, probably through 10 different philosophers over the years in some version of that. But yeah, that's a big one. And the other one is act with integrity. Focus on doing the right thing and living virtuously, even when it's hard or goes against others' expectations. Or, even more importantly, when no one is watching, do the right thing. This internal compass guides your actions and reinforces perseverance. So, anyway, like I said, there was a slave. Um, if you ever read Epictetus, read some of Epictetus's um, teachings. In fact, he never wrote it. He just had other people take his notes and wrote about him. And uh, I think you'll really like some of the Epictetus quotes out there. Remember, you are mortal. Um, Supposedly, that is, I think over the years, some stories have gotten combined and intermingled, and um, these were teachings that Marcus Aurelius used. I don't know if Epictetus was a slave of Marcus Aurelius, but his slaves would do that. So there you go. Like I said, I am not a Marcus Aurelius or Stoic scholar. I actually have a friend of mine who did his PhD on Marcus Aurelius, so he's someone I should ask about that one. Uh, anyway, I just wanted to give you a quick little never quit mindset moment. That's kind of what we do. I try to do a third live Q&A each week now, called the Never Quit Mindset podcast, to discuss some of the things here and some of the things that I couldn't put in here just because I didn't have enough space in the chapter, because I wanted to keep it short. I wanted to keep it under 100 pages, make it a useful reference guide for people. And, just sometimes just having a few quotes in your head when you're doubting yourself or you're trying to get moving. You're moving and you're just trying not to quit. Sometimes those things help you remember the reason why you started in the first place. All right. So I am going to shift gears now and take some questions. If you guys have questions, you can send them. Happy to listen to them. Looks like don't have anything over on YouTube. Let's see on Instagram. Uh, One quick question here. How do you know if you're doing too much? Good question. I often have to balance that. And if you're worried about overtraining, right, or overstressing, there's a list of symptoms that if you have one or two, I probably wouldn't worry about them. But if you have several of these overtraining um, symptoms, I would definitely be a little more concerned. Okay, so overtraining symptoms. Um, Joint pain, like chronic muscle soreness, meaning, if you do a workout and you're sore for like 4 or 5 days and it's really bad. I mean, that could also be a rhabdo type thing. Rhabdo is an indicator that you're doing too much. That's for sure. Sickness, often. Lower immune system, constantly fighting off something, constantly feeling cruddy. Mentally and physically drained, you just got no juice for anything. You notice negative performance, mean you're decreasing your reps, your weights, your swim times and run times are slowing down, and you're just not doing well physically with your performance. So if you're not assessing, you're just guessing. So you definitely have to assess yourself to make sure you're seeing progress. Insomnia, that's the worst part of this. Like, if you have overtraining symptoms, you have overtraining syndrome, and all you really need to go to sleep, but now you can't sleep, that really sucks. That's usually a high cortisol level, so you need to do things that are going to help relax you, breathing deep, mobility, stretching, um, massaging, something that's going to force you to relax, work off some of that cortisol without burning the candle at both ends, and then perhaps getting a better night's sleep. Losing fat and muscle, losing weight basically, but you're losing muscle as well. Lack of enthusiasm for exercise, poor attitude, grumpy all the time. I will say my wife pulls that one on me a couple of times. She goes, "You must be overtraining." If I get a little mouthy. Um, Elevated heart rate at wake up. This is a really good one. So instead of these um, kind of subjective things over here, like, yeah, I'm sick a lot. The decreased performance is very objective. You can see if you're objectively doing worse. Not feeling well is kind of subjective, but you know how you feel going into a workout. Are you constantly not feeling like working out, but you do anyway? That's good, but sometimes you need to pull back if you're feeling other things like this. The elevated heart rate at wake up is really big. So you should know what your resting heart rate is. And the best way to take your resting heart rate is before you get up and before you even start thinking about what you have to do for the day, take your resting heart rate. Because as soon as you start thinking of stuff, your heart rate starts, I got to go do this, I got to go do that. And adrenaline starts pumping, your heart rate's going to pump up. So before you have anything, before you even get up, take your heart rate, see what that is. Should be pretty low. If you're active, it should be low 50s, high 40s is pretty normal for a really good in shape person. Um, Increase in injuries. A lot of overuse injuries tend to show up in this. Depression, that one would suck. Mental breakdown, it's getting worse. Lower testosterone levels, higher cortisol levels. So these you would have to get your blood work done. Never a bad idea to get your blood work done at least every 6 months. Some people do it every 3 months, for some issues. Digestive issues, having a hard time eating, you get acid reflux, diarrhea, stuff like that. That can be another one. And unable to complete the workouts that you have set up for yourself. So that's just a few of overtraining syndrome symptoms. Um, so definitely you're going to want to um, make sure that list. In fact, maybe I got a better article. I bet I have an article with all the overtraining symptoms on it. Let me see. I had this really good um, wasn't made by me, but it was a really good. Oh, here it is. Boom, found it. So it's a really good list of overtraining um, symptoms of overtraining, underperformance, and it has a list of underperformance items, mood disturbances, physiological changes that you see, and sleep disturbances. So I'm going to put this link over here, and you guys can check that out for that list on whether or not. And that's a long answer. Sorry to be so long on that answer, but how do you know if you're overdoing it? Doing too much. That's usually how I know I'm doing too much. Do you think it's important to have a long run during the week? Yeah, if you want to, add one in there. It can also be a long swim or a long bike. Whatever. If you're looking for building some aerobic base, that's good. If you're looking for building some a little durability, depends. If you're not that good at running yet, you don't want to just jump into a really long run and wonder why you get shin splints the next week. So as long as you're progressing logically each week, you're good to go. But yeah, have a long run if you want to add it. My left Achilles is super sore, hurting for some reason. Didn't run this morning because of the pain. Is there cross training I can do to sub for it? Achilles is a weird one, man. Usually Achilles comes from jumping, sprinting, running uphill. So first of all, tell me how you think you did it. And then I'm going to tell you, okay, well, sounds like you stretched it too hard doing a jump or a plyometric, or you're running uphill, so that stretched the Achilles a little bit too much. Sprinting can also do it. So what I would say is don't stretch it. Massage it, foam roll it, um, put some compression on it. If you need to, you can put some ice on it, but don't stretch it afterwards. Like let it warm up naturally, get some blood flow down there. Um, but yeah, pretty much elevate it and compress it with compression sleeve type thing. Um, and don't stretch it for a while. Like you're going to want to stretch it, but you probably injured it by stretching it. So lay off the stretching. Gray Man said, love that Brad Geary mentioned you in the video with DJ the other day. Yeah, you know what? I know both those guys. I've known both of those guys since before they were SEALs. And honored to know both of them. They're both very nice to mention me. Um, I appreciate it always. In fact, I knew Brad Geary especially well because when I went back to the academy as the SEAL who ran their pre-SEAL program, I was a company officer. And when you're a company officer, you're in charge of 120 or 130 midshipmen and their daily lives. And he was in my company, along with a couple of other young men who became SEALs as well. So I had a regular uh, relationship with those guys, preparing them before they went to Buds. So it's good to see him doing well. Great human being. Great human. Both of them are. All right, let's see what we got over here. All right, you guys. Let's see. Somebody just asked, "Have I read Ernst Younger?" Why is that name familiar? Ernst Younger. Storm of Steel, Marble Cliffs. Oh yeah. I've seen a couple of his books. Don't think I have read them specifically though. I think I probably just some quotes by him. But I will. Looks like he's into it. Same stuff I was just discussing. I finished phase 1, phase 2, 3. Phase 1 and phase 2, 3, huh? Good job. Boom. phase 1, phase 2, 3, and should I do the winter lift cycle before phase 4 and let it keep my run swim endurance while building durability and tree? That's what I do, be honest with you. I'd get into the winter lift cycle. Probably the one you can do either the seasonal tactical fitness periodization lift cycle for the winter, or you could do the increase strength and crush the PST lift cycle, because that one's a little more specific to the PST numbers, whereas this one is in general still has the PST events, but it's not designed to help you maintain or even improve your PST numbers like the increased strength and crush the PST lift cycle is. In fact, I've seen people with that block periodization model, even though our goal is not to improve our mile and a half or improve our push ups and pull ups, they did anyway. So I really like that exercise. I love that we're getting into the fall this next week, because adding lifts in there, like this week is our deload week from our summer training, where we cut the mileage in half where we were and we add lifts to each day. So today we didn't do a hill day, but we lifted deadlifts and squats and fireman carries and lunges and all those fun things, just to kind of get back into the lift cycle that's coming up. So we're slowly transitioning out of that high mileage and high repetitions and adding weight. Just really helps with rehabbing from all those miles. Because I'm telling you, if you do it too long, you're just going to wind up injured at some point. And it may take a year or two or more of just constant redlining your running and your calisthenics and your lifting all at the same time. Um, but eventually things are going to break. This way, with this block periodization model, where you ebb and flow with peaks and valleys of primary and secondary goals, with all the different elements of fitness that you have to learn how to improve. Um, this is a method that has kept me injury free, other than stupid aches and pains like rolled ankles or a little bit of knee tendonitis or something like that, but nothing that I couldn't work through. Okay, I'm training hard. David says, I'm training hard, making gains, but I am in my 40s and I've had a hard time losing some of the visceral fat in my stomach. I eat the right things, but no success. How do I fix this? Hey, man, join the club. You and I are right there. I'm in my 50s now, still working it, but you can no longer outwork your diet. That's why I came up with the Tactical Fitness Over 40. There's 4 programs in that, and one, it adds mobility to your week, which a lot of people neglect, and you can't neglect it in your 40s. If you really want to continue working out harder in your 40s and 50s and beyond, you need to start mixing in some mobility training, flexibility. Now, as far as dieting is concerned, what has helped me the most, and my recent medical evaluations were pretty good. All my blood numbers were good. My body weight was real close. I'm like right there, about 5-10 pounds away from my bud's weight, which is all I'm trying to do, trying to get to my bud's weight of like 205. But I had a range at buds. I was between 195 and 205. So that's where I want to be. That's me probably at my best and easier to run than 215. Um, so what I do is this: I have a salad, but I put my salad on my dinner plate, and then I have a dinner, and I put my dinner on my salad plate. That has helped me tremendously with not overeating, even though it's good stuff. I can overeat good stuff. I can eat an extra piece of steak. I can eat an extra chicken breast. I can eat an extra fillet of fish. So that's where I have my problems, is I can just eat extra protein. And next thing I know, I've added another 500, 600 calories to my meal. Didn't even think about it. So that's what I do. I try to cut it back a little bit, though. I try to eat more protein, um, and any carbs I'm eating are in the form of fruits and vegetables. That helps. Let's see. Hey, Stu, I emailed you a few days ago regarding new changing to the Navy PST prep change, 1,000-yard swim and sub 20 4-mile run. How would you go about training for that? Same way you're doing. Um, I would practice 4-mile timed runs. I would practice 1,000-yard swims with fins. It's really not that difficult. You don't have to break it down into threshold runs, long, slow distance run, and sprint days. It's those two tests are not that tough. If you're already training for workouts like this, where you're getting the mile and a half, you're doing all the right things to work your speed and your endurance and your pace, all of that. Now, what I would do is just on a swim day, a swim leg day, time your first 1,000. That's it. You're probably going to swim 2,000, 2,500 in this program anyway, especially this one. Probably build up to 3,000, 4,000. Just time your first 1,000 and you'll see it's not that hard. Most people are hitting it at about a yard per second, even without focusing on it. And if you can do that, you're going to be at like a 16, 40, 17-minute 1,000. 4-mile timed run, you don't have to do a 4-mile run in sub 24. That's not right. You got that wrong. Not many people can do that. In fact, I would say maybe 5% of the people at Buds are doing a 4-mile run in sub 24. And by the way, this is not a PST change. This is a prep test. The PST has stayed the same. You're still going to do a 500-yard swim, pull up, push up, sit ups, and a 1.5 mile run. That's the PST. This is the exit test to get into first phase while you're at prep. Now, if you can run your 4-mile run in under 28, that's good. That's where you need to be. Under 30, you can still get away with it, but right now there's so many people at Buds that it's a competition. So they're going to take the best 200 out of the 500 people that are in prep and send them along. And that number may be sub 28. You don't need sub 24. That's a 6-minute mile for 4. Then you would need to practice your 800s and your 1200s and things like that. But for a 7-minute pace, not that tough. So you need a 6-minute pace for your 1.5 miles. You need a 7-minute pace, sub 7-minute pace for your 4-mile run. Do I agree extra strength ashwagandha would help? I don't know. Help what? I'm not sure. What does it help? Everything? I doubt it helps everything. Does it help me lose weight? I don't know. Does it help me perform better? I don't know. Be honest with you. I don't think you should take it for a long time, though. I was reading something on it that it's not meant for long time use. Ashwagandha benefits. So stress and anxiety, improved cognition function, blood sugar control, muscle and growth strength, may promote muscle and growth strength by increasing testosterone levels, reducing cortisol. Interesting. Important to note the effectiveness of ashwagandha may vary depending on the individual and the dosage taken. Recommended to consult healthcare professionals before using it. I am not one of those, so I'm not condoning any of this. I'm just looking it up. Improve sleep. So would that help maybe with the overtraining symptoms? Perhaps. But you know what helps best with overtraining symptoms? Sleep and nutrition. That's 90% of your recovery right there. You eat well and you go to sleep and get 7, 8 hours of sleep at night, you got yourself a really good um, recovery factor that you don't need supplements to do it. You need to eat good food and go to sleep. Drink water. 90% of your recovery, 95% of your recovery will be done. And here's the problem. Most people spend all their money on the 5%, missing 5% of that. They spend it on massages and saunas and ice baths and you name it. Foam rollers. Well, those are great too, but you may be missing the most important recovery tool that we have is everything's natural. It's eating, it is sleeping, and it is breathing. So learn how to breathe to relax yourself. That'll help you fall asleep. You sleep better, you eat better, you're going to recover better. So here's the thing. Optimal performance, optimal human performance, as well as longevity, requires being a master of recovery. And that's all those things I just mentioned. You can't have longevity and you can't have optimal performance without nutrition, sleep, breathing, hydration. Can't. So, do you need ashwagandha? I don't know. I think you need those other four things even more than ashwagandha. Let's see. How do you focus on stubborn visceral fat in your midsection, in your opinion? It's got to be a holistic approach. You can't just put a you know fat burning belt around your belly and watch it go away. Um, you, it has to be everything from your exercise, your nutrition, your limiting of calories each day, but eating good calories. You don't want to starve yourself because you need energy to work out, but you don't want to eat crap food and extra calories to stop you from having a caloric deficit and actually losing fat at the end of the day. Somebody says, can you and is it recommended to take supplements at buds like creatine? No, you can't. There's probably the most known rule at all of these programs is no supplements. In fact, if it says supplement facts on it, can't see that. If it says supplement facts on it, you can't take it. If it says nutrition facts on it, you can't take it. I'm trying to see if I have any nutrition facts. I had some protein here that's all pure protein, which on the back says nutrition facts on it. So you can take food at Buds, but you cannot take supplements. Now, are they going to know you stop by a 7-Eleven and get a muscle milk? No, I don't think that matters. But you can't take supplements at Buds, and you can't take creatine. In fact, I've seen creatine ruin Spec Ops dreams. That's the only reason why I talk about creatine negatively. Looking at all the studies that have gone on, I see the benefits out there. Look, I'm not saying I don't use it, right? I like it, very small doses, because it helps with so much. Um, but big loading doses, like athletes would take in a weight room getting ready for football season, that is a whole lot different, and a lot of people overuse it. And I've seen Spec Ops dreams end because of creatine, because they were in the middle of a lift cycle, taking a lot of or creatine and protein and stuff like that. They come into a screening weekend that's 36 hours of continuous motion and discomfort and hot and sweaty and running all the time, swimming and rucking, load bearing, and they full body bilateral cramping that ended their day. Now, that was in the 90s when I think people didn't know how to hydrate for it or how to dose it properly because everybody, America's like, oh, take more, it's better. More is not better. In fact, I think they've gotten a lot smarter with the dosing. So they're not loading doses anymore. They're actually small usable doses that can have benefits mentally and um, help you fight off catabolic effects of stresses in life. Whole bunch of benefits to it, but I wouldn't take it at buds. In fact, you're not supposed to. Great weather nationwide. Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, lower your stress level to reduce body fat. Absolutely. Once again, how do you lower your stress level? Nutrition, sleep, breathing, and hydration. All of those will reduce your stress levels and therefore improve your recovery and improve your performance and improve your longevity. Because stress is the same thing as overtraining, if you think about it. Hormonally speaking, it's the exact same thing. If I can't pay a bill at the end of the month, I have all this stress that is going through my body. If I'm overdoing it, working out hard and not sleeping well and doing things like that, I have stress running through my body. I am physically creating stress. Whereas over here, I'm mentally creating stress. Bad relationships emotionally create stress. Stress is stress. It doesn't matter if you got bullets flying over your head or you're overtraining and can't pay a bill at the end of the month. Same stress hormones running through your body. So, yes, you have to lower stress. And you lower stress by eating well, sleeping well, hydrating well, because that is a big stressor in a lot of Americans' lives, and breathing. Learn how to breathe to de stress. Have you heard of guys that already work in civil service go to selection and make it for reserves? I'm not sure, be honest with you. I mean, people come from all backgrounds and go into selection. I've seen homeless people do it. I've seen people in the government, State Department, other branches of government. I've seen teachers, high school teachers go through selection, construction workers, athletes that were high collegiate professional go into the military. So it's all types. How would you strengthen your joints and ligaments and those tissues around joints? That's a tough one. I mean, you got a couple of different options when it comes to strengthening joints, but your training is going to do that. Whether you are doing calisthenics or you're doing weight training, that is what will build your connective tissue around joints. Um, are there supplements and foods you can take? Um, Foods and supplements for joint healing. There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, anti-inflammatory rich diets. I have fish oil and D3, um, antioxidants. So fish, walnuts, flaxseed, omega-3 fatty acids. You can take those in pills. That's what I have. This fish oil over here. Antioxidants and berries, green leafy vegetables, nutrients like calcium, magnesium, vitamin D. I take magnesium and vitamin D. All of those can help you with uh, overall joint health. Yeah. Maintain a healthy body weight too. That's probably the biggest one. Like if you're overweight, you are stressing your um, you're definitely stressing your joints, lower body joints, especially. Um, how much does workout and exercise help with mental stability? Well, put it this way, I don't think I could live without it mentally. It just does. How much does it? I think it's better than medication in some instances. Like there are people who work out that because they work out, they don't need medications for a variety of things, whether you're talking about cholesterol and high blood pressure or you're talking about depression and anxiety. It helps with that. And your recovery from that physical activity helps with it even more so. Um, oh, I see what you're saying. Should have clarified what I mean. Ask, is there a clear path viable with the reserves? Only in Army Special Forces can you be a reservist, National Guard member, and go through selection. Buds doesn't have that. You can't be a reservist and go be a reserve SEAL. That doesn't exist. There are reserve SEAL units, but they're all former active duty SEALs. Like you can't just join the National Guard and go be a go be a Navy SEAL. You can go be a Green Beret and then augment. In fact, we have a guy here that trained with us. It's a Green Beret, active duty, enlisted. Um, moved back home after his 8 or 10 years in the Army. Became a police officer, SWAT team guy, and he's still in the reserves, National Guard, Green Beret, and he's about to deploy again. So that is how that's how it works in the Army. Air Force, I think they do. I think they have a reserve special ops pipeline, but I'm not 100% sure how that works if it's similar to the Army. Um, so, what do you think about the NSWPT guide, the blue one? Um, I think they're always. Here's the problem. Anytime that you have a program, it is so difficult to create a program that can be used by everybody. So, if you're a beginner, I think that is a good program to start with. If you're not, it may be too easy for you, but that's the way it goes with generic training programs. You may need to personalize it to make it harder for yourself by adding more miles and adding more reps and things like that. But you got to be smart about it because you can get injured if you do too much. So that's the problem I have with it. I think it's too easy. If someone's using that to go into buds very quickly. If you're only giving yourself 12 weeks or 3 months, 6 months to get ready for buds, you may need more time. I've only seen a few people in my life that actually prepared for buds in about 3 months and did really well. But they were athletes in a previous life of constantly lifting and running and swimming and doing things like that really helped them. And all I really needed to do is perfect their swimming, or perfect whatever they were not good at doing, and then they had no weaknesses going in, and they did really well. So my advice is this: if you're going to follow a program, follow it. And if there are things in there that you're not good at, make sure you're not skipping them, because if you have a weakness that is underdeveloped, it will be exposed within minutes of first phase, first day. It's going to be exposed, I promise. Um, that could be a pool skill, that could be running, it could be load bearing. Could be your agility on an obstacle course, whatever that is. You need to be able to have all of those elements of fitness well developed so you're not getting beat up. Nice. Got some Hell Week secured pictures from last week. That's awesome. Just got texted some of the guys securing, so that's always nice to see. Huh. Let's see here. How much does work? Okay, we already answered that. If I just run slow and ignore heart rate climb, is that still zone 2? Here in Florida, it's hard. Here on FL, not sure what that means. It's hard to get the heart rate low. Thank you. Here on FL. Anybody know what that means? Um, okay. You need to learn what zone 2 is. Do a little more research on what zone 2 is, because zone 2 isn't just about running slow. Here's the problem with running slow. You get good at running slow. I don't mind zone 2, but you need to learn that. I mean, we have guys that are doing 7-minute miles at zone 2. They have gotten their cardio up to a level where they can jog as a 7-minute mile and still be conversational, which is really good. Um, people who are even better runners than that can do that with a 6-minute mile and still be shooting the breeze while they're running. So everybody's zone 2 is different. There's not one particular zone 2. It's when you can no longer talk and run at the same pace. That's zone 2, right before it. You can still talk and run at the same time. Keep it at that pace, you're in zone 2. And that's going to change the better in shape you get. You'll be able to run a little faster, have a lower heart rate. But you don't do that just by doing zone 2. You also need to run fast, and you also need to run your pace and learn what the pace feels like. So there's more to running and getting good at running than just doing zone 2 runs. In fact, if you read that article I wrote about running programs, you'll see the running plan to get you to and through selection. I'll put this link in here because it's really good. It's a good running week. It's 20 miles a week. So if you're not at 20, do what you're at. Take out a couple of runs or reduce the mileage a little bit. It's a good way to learn how to do different types of running: goal pace running, longer, slower distance running, interval running. All of those things are really important. Are they letting anyone get to buds with background waivers right now? I don't know. I mean, I imagine. I mean, I've seen people get all kinds of waivers, medical, criminal, and they're not horrible criminal, they're not real criminal. They're seen a couple of felonies get in before, but usually they'll shut it down at a misdemeanor. Um, a lot of speeding tickets, things like that. Sometimes just not a good look for you. Don't like following rules, so you speed. That's how they'll judge that sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know what's up with the waivers. Workouts outside in the fall. Any tips on dress attire to avoid getting chilled or too hot? Yeah, that's funny. Um, I mean, I usually wear layers. So I'll start my workout with like this, a long sleeve shirt. Um, and if it's cold, I'll wear a sweatshirt over it, do my warm up with that, take it off when I don't feel like I need it anymore, and then start running without it. And that usually works pretty well. Carlisle. Thanks for changing my life and keeping me around longer. Oh, you're welcome. You did the work, man. Good job. Still keeping off 114 pounds. 57. All right, man. That's awesome. Good to see you. You guys, those are the things I like to see the most. Not just somebody who goes from 10 pull-ups to 20 pull-ups and a 7-minute mile to a 6-minute mile. While those are fun, these mean so much. When you can drop 100 pounds off your body and feel good about yourself and live longer, healthier, that's what it's all about right there. Thanks for sharing that one, Carlisle. Do y'all swim in open water during the fall and winter? Not the winter around here, but we do in the fall. In fact, we actually don't swim in the heat of the summer open water around here because of jellyfish. We live in the Chesapeake Bay. There's some great areas to swim, but during July and August, ugh, ugh, jellyfish everywhere. You'll get stung 10 times in 100 yards. And that's usually my like I swim 100 yards, and if I get stung more than 5 times, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Like, if I get stung once or 2 times, in a swim, that's okay. I've seen that before, but your first 100 yards and you get stung 5 times, a mile's going to be 50, and that's not fun. So we don't swim in July and August, but now that it's September, getting late September, October, we'll even go until November until the water gets into the low 50s. But after that, we don't swim in the 40s or 30s because it gets like 36, 38 degrees in the winter here, and that's not swimming. That's an ice bath. Trying to get some things at the moment related to my studies, but I don't have interest and hate doing it. How do I get comfortable doing it? Woo! Good question. Man, I can't tell you how many classes I took that I did not enjoy. That's life. sorry to sorry to be harsh on you, but it really is. It is life. And it's a matter of time management. You're going to have to study some of this stuff. And if you're not good at it, you may have to spend more time on it. You may have to get help on it. Find somebody that is good at it. Might be a teacher, might be a tutor or something. Um, just get some help on it. And then you may find that you start getting better at it, that you don't hate it as much. That is typically how it goes. I've had some classes that I knew were going to be hard, and I knew I was going to have to work on it. And going in with that mindset to make good grades, um, and sometimes my good grade was a C. I mean, I was proud of that C. Um, so you don't have to enjoy it, but you will enjoy it once you start getting better at it. But if you find college completely not for you, you know, find something else to do. I hate to say that, but college isn't for everybody. And it really depends on what you're studying too. If you're studying something that you're probably not going to use as a career, and really all you're doing is getting a degree, I mean, there's something said in that. I mean, employers like to see people finish things. And even though you might be a philosophy major, you go into sales, no one really cares what your major is. You understand a little bit about business, that's fine. But you only get comfortable doing it by doing it and working hard enough to see positive results. Then it takes away the discomfort a little bit. What age do you think is too old to go to buds? Whew, good question. Well, I will say I have seen people in their early 30s get through it and did it fine. And one of my friends graduated at 37 buds. But he was a little man. He's probably about 140, 150 pounds. Great triathlete type athlete. Wiry, strong, and a lot of cardio. So he grinded it out at that. So he had a cardiovascular motor for sure, and still does. He still does Ironmans in his 50s. He did his 20 years and got out. But yeah, he graduated in his late 30s. Pretty impressive. So how old do I think is too old? I think anything over 31 is too old. But once again, I also think 18 and 19 is too young. But I'm proven wrong every buds class that an 18 and 19-year-old kid makes it. But there's a huge attrition rate with that spectrum. Okay. The attrition rate is huge on the 18, 19-year-olders over here and the 29 and older over here. It just is. It's even bigger. It's bigger on the teens. Put it this way, you have a better chance at going to buds and graduating at 29 at the max end of the spectrum than you do at 18 and 19. Just look at the attrition rates. It'll show you. There's just not many people that go at 29. There's probably 80% of your class when you first start are teenagers. And then you have like 3 graduate. And it's a fact. I'm not making stuff up. If that didn't exist, I'd say go at 18, but it does. Teenagers don't make it on average. I'm 21 now and would like to go when I'm 23. You're fine. 23 is a great age. I went at 22 and finished at 23. All right, couple more questions. I got to go. When rucking, should we run slow downhill and fast uphill? What about flat surfaces? Well, yeah, flat surfaces, you can play around with your pace significantly. You can run fast, you can walk fast, you can, um, walk slow, power walk. Um, Downhill, I never found it comfortable to run fast or ruck fast downhill. In fact, I would, when I was rucking, I would do these little switchbacks. Like I would go down at an angle, go down at an angle, go down at an angle, just because it hurt to go straight down too much. Almost like you're skiing. You're skiing left and right to go down a big hill. That helped a lot, especially when you're on a ski slope doing an obstacle course race. Whew, that's some hard running. Just depends on how steep they are, really. Hey, Stu, what do you think of listening to music during workouts when preparing for the military? Is it a bad habit, but does it increase performance? I have no idea. That's not my thing. I do not listen to music during workouts. I don't have headsets during workouts. I do put on a speaker and play my playlist during workouts, but it's really just, some old tunes that no one's really paying attention to, but it does. I don't know why I do it, but it is helpful for, I don't think it makes us perform better. It's just background noise more than anything. And it's basically my playlist that I listened to in the 80s when I was lifting. So some of those same old songs that were in my weight room when I was first starting. Somebody says, I thought 29 was the age limit to go to buds. It is, but I've seen 30 getting waived without much issue, and low 30s definitely getting age waivers. Some, not all, but some. There's age waivers for everything, and there's a waiver for everything, typically. Can resistance band pull downs over pull up bar replace lat pull downs in the fall winter workout? Yeah, absolutely. Great idea. So instead of doing pull downs with a machine, which typically is about 60 to 80% of your body weight when you're doing a pull down, um, yeah, you can do it with bands, or you can do a pull up with assisted bands pulling you up. So you're doing about 60 to 80% of your body weight if you want to go a little heavier. All right. Last question. How many weeks is considered a good taper before going into selection, including increase, decrease volume? Well, here's the thing. Um, Before selection, you're not really um, you're not really in a place to um, taper. Okay, for instance, most people who ship from here go into the Navy, and they're trying to go to BUDS or EOD training or SWIC training. However, we do get people going to Army, SF, and all that stuff. Um, we had some Marine Corps, MARSOC guys even come through here, recon guys. But here's the problem: is that when you go to boot camp, that's your taper right there. From you work out really, really hard, and you're going to go to boot camp, and you might run 3 miles a week for 8 weeks when you're at Navy boot camp. It sucks for physical performance. It's not that hard, not hard at all. If you had some PE classes in high school, um, you'll probably be fine in Navy boot camp. Uh, it is a deload cycle, and then you go into prep, and now you start building back up again. So, is there a need to even taper before you start selection? I don't know. Seems like you just tapered. Now you're just kind of building back up. But even before fitness tests, we rarely taper. We'll take a day off before, but do a mobility day. So that's my answer on the tapering thing. So, yeah, King Shrek says I pulled Marcus Aurelius from the dead. Yeah, well, I tell you what, I quote him a lot in this one. I think he's extra special in our history of human achievement, and you should read more about him. I think you'll be satisfied with what you pick up in that. And I'll check out Ernst Younger as well. I definitely need to read more of him, it looks like. Okay, so you guys have a good one. I'll be back tomorrow with a live Q&A and CSS critique. So you want me to check out your swim, send it to me. Happy to look at it. You guys go check out Stu Smith Fitness at stewsmithfitness.com. A lot of articles over there, tons of programming, courses, coaching, you name it. I'm here to help. Go check it out. You guys have a good one.